Welcome to Better Sex, where you get the information and inspiration to create and enjoy your best possible sex life. Join your host, sex therapist Jessa Zimmerman, as she brings you expert guests, helpful tips, knowledge, and strategies to improve your intimate relationships. And now, your host, Jessa Zimmerman.
Hi, it's Jessa, back for another episode of the Better Sex Podcast. Thank you for being with me. I am just delighted that you're here. I want to invite you to be part of my community and my mailing list if you have not joined me already. Every couple of weeks or so, I send an email with resources and links and tips and information that, hopefully is helpful. But it also gets you free access to my monthly webinar. So I take a little bit of a different topic every month and share some information, but a big part of it is also an open Q&A where you get to ask me anything. Hopefully that's a great resource for you too. I offer these twice a month, close together, but two different times so that hopefully you could participate in one of them. And I would love to have you join me. And again, that's available for free for anyone who's on my mailing list. So if you're looking to participate in that, you can look at seattlesextherapist.com/list. That will get you in there. I look forward to it. So today's topic is about prioritizing your relationship and your sex life specifically. This is the first of 9 phases that I wrote about in my book, Sex Without Stress, because the very first step before you can really change anything is to prioritize time with your partner. To be sexual, but also just to spend time and connect and to talk and to build your emotional relationship. And my guest today really focuses on this. She hosts a podcast called Married to Doctors. And in her own personal life, she is married to a trauma surgeon and they have 5 children. So she has a lot of insight into what the challenges are in trying to fit your relationship in and trying to, spend time together, have time that you can be physically intimate, all of that in the midst of a crazy life. So she's here to talk about the challenges that she faced, but also the strategies, and some insights and tips to help you prioritize intimacy in your life, whether you're married to a doctor or you're just having challenges in another way. So Lara McElderry is my guest today, and I hope you enjoy the show. Lara, thank you so much for being with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jessa. This is a neat opportunity.
Yeah. So start off, if you would, just tell us a little bit about, who you are and where this story sort of starts.
Yeah, so my name is Lara McElderry, and I have been married to my husband for 17 years now. A little bit about us. We met and got married pretty quickly, I would say, with just in a matter of months, which is unusual, I think, for couples nowadays. Yeah. We did not live together before getting married. We did not have sex before getting married, which is also extremely unusual, I think,
right.
in today's culture. And my husband was going to be a math teacher, and I was working on a master's degree in teaching. And I pictured us just living in our little community and settling down and raising a family and having a nice little 401k through the state or something like that.
Right.
And my husband decided a couple years into marriage that he would do medical school.
Oh, yeah. That's a little bit of a detour, isn't it?
Yeah, just a little bit. And so I thought, this is great. And I thought it was such a romantic idea at first. And then we started the process. And then I realized just how naive I had been with that. And over the next many, many years, we spent training and moving, getting through. He is now a trauma surgeon, and we live in Missouri. I have a podcast called Married to Doctors, and we discuss the not so glamorous life of being married to a physician. So,
not the romantic side of that.
Right, not the romantic side. So, in addition to the 4 years of medical school that we went through together, he has trained for 8 additional years, and we have lived in 4 or 5 states now for the training: Arkansas, Ohio, Wisconsin, and New Mexico. So it's definitely been a long journey, and of course, it's been hard on our relationship. I think all relationships change, but the medical aspect is an interesting one, and I think hopefully one that your listeners might find interesting as we discuss today.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully interesting. I can't imagine how many listeners are actually married to a doctor, specifically, but it seems like what you're going to share is also going to be relevant for potentially for any really high powered or busy career minded couple, that some of the same issues would show up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of my listeners aren't necessarily married to physicians either, but maybe they're married to someone with a demanding career. And honestly, that career can be about any career, right? So my sister is married to a mechanic, but they own their own business. And so the amount of time they put into their own business in their own shop, and, it can be comparable. I have some friends that are married to truck drivers. And so again, you're dealing with the distance, right?
Right.
Them being gone. So it's less about the job and more about, I think, just some of those commonalities that could come up in marriage when there is just demands, right? Demands on time, demands on our energy, and it affects our marriages.
Right. So talk a little bit about that. What are the kinds of challenges that you encountered, that you didn't expect, that you did expect? I mean, either way, but like what were the bumps in the road?
Yeah. So I think one of the hardest things is the responsibility piece. As a physician or as someone trying to get through really demanding school and training programs, there's a lot of responsibility on that working spouse, right? And then there's also responsibility. We had kind of a traditional marriage setup, right? So we chose to have children. We have 5 boys, and I was a teacher for a while, and then that got complicated when we had a kiddo with some health issues. So I became a stay-at-home parent. So we have a very traditional marriage, male, female. I'm stay-at-home mom. He's working. So you have to kind of bear with that stereotype, but that was us, right? And there's still a lot of families that look like that. And one of the really hard things for me was the responsibilities he had. And then I had responsibilities too, but it seemed like he could, when he came home and wanted to decompress, and just be together or, be intimate, I was still in my work environment, if you will. Right?
Yeah.
Nothing had changed for me. Him coming home could kind of be this safe haven where he could be, rejuvenated or kind of get what he needed from that. And I was like, wait a minute. So it became this feeling of give.
Over what kind of time frame? I mean, I'm imagining at first you were delighted when he comes in the door and wants to connect with you. And then it's kind of a gradual shift over to, wait a minute.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do with, what kind of day am I having at home? How am I feeling supported? So if he comes home and if he isn't able to be present with me at any point in the day until later in the evening when maybe he's looking for that connection, I think that can be a turnoff, not for just me, but for a lot of women, because we often, as women, I think, want things to kind of be more in place, right? So we're thinking, gosh, the dishes aren't done, like the kids need X, Y, or Z. How can his mind even go there?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then for him, he's like, look, I only get a very short amount of time with you every day,
Right.
And so I want to make the most of it. And that's his way of making the most of it.
Yeah. And it's not, I see this with couples in my practice all the time. It's not like one of you's right and one of you's wrong. We just sort of have these competing needs or different experiences that we have to figure out, how do we put these together?
Just, I think that responsibility piece is a challenge, and it's not something we definitely don't have like magic answers. But for me, it's been, okay, what are my responsibilities at home? How can I better just be aware of them? And so for me, one thing I've had to do is get used to leaving the kitchen dirty sometimes.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a home where my mom did not sleep if the dishes were not clean, like the sink clean when you went to bed. Yeah. Which is fantastic, right? And part of me would love that. I would love to wake up every morning and walk into a clean kitchen, which is what she did.
Right.
Just didn't go to bed before the dishes were done. And so going into marriage, that's just kind of, I copied my mom and I thought, I should have these dishes done. This is what we should do. And as our marriage has gone on, I said, sometimes I have to leave the dishes and spend some time with my husband,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not necessarily just having sex, but it's the communication, it's spending time with the children together. It's just being together so that then sex becomes something that we're both desiring.
Right. So talk a little bit about the communication that you two were able to have. I mean, did you do that well from the beginning? Were you easily able to talk about your desires and the stressors and the obstacles, or was there a period of time where things got really difficult?
I think for us, when we first got married, I just think we thought, oh, you just get married and you have sex and everyone's happy and then that's all there is to it, right?
If
And
only.
and that may be true for a short time, but over time we've become much more comfortable speaking about our physical bodies,
Mm-hmm.
and things that we like, things that we don't like. That was very awkward, I think, in the beginning of our relationship. But luckily, with time, we've been able to do some of that. Some of that, in a weird way, may have been easier because he is a physician. And so he talks about the human body so often that I think it became more comfortable maybe for him to bring it up as well. I know, like, he sees the female form, if you will, right? Like, as a general surgeon, he operates on men and women. And so, of course,
Right.
he's exposed to female bodies. And that's something, as I work with physician spouses, that can be a little bit awkward sometimes. But I think if you can approach it from just take a step back and look at what it actually is, and that, yes, he's seeing the female form and he's operating and doing these things, but it's not a sexual experience, right?
Right.
It's a totally different experience. It does involve the body, it does involve human touch, but it's not a sexual experience. And so those kind of conversations are really important, especially for physician spouses, but I think for any couples to just recognize the ability that we have to talk about our actual human bodies,
Yeah. So I guess what you're saying is this was another sort of obstacle or issue for you as married to a physician, as he's exposed to other women's bodies in a way that many people are not in their line of work.
Yeah, it's something I thought about. I wouldn't say it was an issue for me so much. I do have people reach out to me, and I know it can be a big struggle. It did cross my mind a few times. I was like, it's kind of different, to think that he's giving, these breast exams or, different things. But again, it was just taking a step back, looking at it with a mature mindset. What is he actually doing?
Yeah.
And with that, just accepting it. And it certainly isn't an issue for me at this point at all.
Right. Right. What has gone into the solutions that you guys have around these lifestyle differences and how you've prioritized your intimate relationship in the midst of life?
Yeah. So like I said, getting used to leaving the kitchen a little bit dirty if
Right.
prioritizing. Some people don't like this idea, but I find that it does work for a lot of people, and that is scheduling your sex life. So saying, Friday night is going to be date night. We plan to have sex. Let's look forward to that. That can be beneficial, I think, when you have, as we do, multiple children and a demanding career. To have that to look forward to, I think then it kind of gives you something to flirt about, and to kind of build that excitement, which can be beneficial.
Have you always been able to look forward to that? Because I'm just imagining couples that I've talked to and people that might be listening where the scheduling thing starts to feel like a burden or something they've got to check off a list and get through. Like, how did you maintain, or did you struggle at all to look forward to that? Or was that easy?
Well, I think it's funny because couples always talk, this comes up a lot as, of course, is initiation, right? Who's going to initiate? And so it's almost the same thing with scheduling. Who initiates the scheduling? So it's almost like we're having the same problem, right? Like you're either initiating in the moment or you're initiating ahead of time. So I think a lot of those concerns come up. So it kind of depends on And to be honest, we don't schedule very often in a formal way.
Okay.
But there have been times where my husband's had like long stretches of demanding rotations. And so it's kind of come up, like, hey, I was looking forward, but you haven't been home for 3 nights or 4 nights or a week.
Yeah.
And likewise, he can say, you're already asleep when I come in and I don't want to wake you up. And so having those discussions of, hey, go ahead and wake me up.
Okay.
And that's one thing my husband has said. I work these crazy hours and yes, I need my sleep, but if you're in the mood, please wake me up.
So he's said that. Go ahead and wake me up. Yeah.
Yeah. He has told me to go ahead and wake him up.
Yeah.
And that's interesting, but that's what I needed to hear. Because without that information, because in my mind, I'm like, if I'm asleep, do not wake me up.
It's not like, it doesn't necessarily go both ways, right? But you can
not always. Not always.
What the rules are.
Right.
Hi, it's Jessa here, taking just a quick break. Thanks for listening so far. I wanted to let you know about the sex quiz that I've put together called How Healthy Is Your Sex Life? I've taken a close look at the typical ways that I see couples get into trouble with sex, including avoidance, neglect, negativity, distraction, and boredom. And the free quiz will score your individual results based on these factors. And then I provide my recommendations and ideas, including my top 10 sex tips, which will help you make instant improvement. If you'd like to take the quiz and see how healthy your sex life is, you can do it right now at sexhealthquiz.com. So I hear that you've been willing to leave the kitchen a little bit dirtier, not get the dishes done. What do you think he's compromised on? Or, how has he come towards the middle or considered what you need?
I think he's learned to slow down and maybe ask, hey, what's going on? How can I help? What do you need? And I think as a mom, it's always easier for me to clear my mind and to get more in the mood for sex when the kids are in bed, right? Mm-hmm. When I know that things are taken care of. And the biggest turn on is always just get the kids in bed, right? Help out with bedtime routines can be huge in a marriage. And so I'm very fortunate that my husband's willing to do those types of things. And to me, that's worth more than romantic candlelit dinner.
Right. I mean, the way I think of that, or the way it's been written about, is the context of sex, right? And if he can help with the context, that goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's been, I guess it sounds like he's been willing to do that. It's not like he's come home and thought, I have this incredibly high demanding job and I'm tired and I'm off duty when I walk in the house. Right.
And that's huge. Now, I will say that there are times when he's tired and he comes home and he just crashes, right?
Right.
But those are times when we're not as likely to connect either.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And that's just life. Sometimes life is just like that. It's not like we live in this big romantic world. It can be a very romantic world, but the truth is it's just life. And there's many days where that's the reality of it. It's long hours and it's not connecting and it's missing each other. And I think when those things happen, sometimes we have to kind of regroup and be willing to say, hey, I miss you.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would like to be intimate. When can we make this happen? Do we have time right now? Do we need to plan it for a few days? What's your schedule like? Let's think this through because I'm really frustrated and missing you. And then just both of us working towards that.
So what other tips do you have or thoughts you have about other ways that you've prioritized your couple relationship? Because 5 children too. I mean, even despite the career, that's a huge job. Right. It's a huge impact on your life and on your time. So what else have the two of you done to really nurture your relationship? Not just sexual, but.
Yeah. So I think it's finding things that we can do together, maybe even with the children. So my husband, absolutely, he loves to rock climb. And I don't. I'm not a rock climber. I wish I was, one of those super slim buff chicks going up those 5'9", but I'm not, And so I'm like, okay, but I do love hiking and I do love camping. And so I'm willing to go with him and enjoy his hobby. And then I've learned to do a few things, like I'm willing to belay. And so if we go on a rock climbing trip, then, I've kind of gotten out of my comfort zone and learned how to do a little bit of it and be with him. And then we're able to take the children as well on those trips. So finding things that we can enjoy together is really important. We've also found that we both love to bake. Not the healthiest of habits, but certainly fun. One thing that we've done that's been really fun, because it is hard to get in that time together. And you kind of, I think, after years of marriage, are kind of like, gee, what could we do besides go out to eat or go to a movie? One of the things that we've enjoyed is getting international recipes and trying them out. So my husband and I love Indian food. We love Thai food. And so we love to dig in and try to make something new. We've made sushi together. It's just making new things, discovering recipes, and spending time. And again, that's something we can do that's family friendly with the children. I think for us, we've enjoyed singing together, which sounds kind of cheesy, but my husband plays the piano. We enjoy just hanging out and playing music together and singing together. That can be something that we can enjoy as a family. And I think it's fun to see each other in a different light, maybe, than like the day-to-day life. And so anything that we can do to kind of see each other anew, if you will, I think is good.
I think you're hitting on a couple of really important points, that to my therapist's ears, perk up. Like doing something new and stimulating and to see each other differently, I think is huge. And the other thing, which you're articulating really well, is we can have couple time even though the kids are around, right? We can do something as a family, but that doesn't have to take away from the coupleness of that. I think that's something my clients miss sometimes is just because the kids are around, we can still totally be aware of each other and connect with each other.
Yeah. And I think just saying, mom and dad are kind of on a date right now in the kitchen. So if you come in, just know we're flirting with each other, and they all go through these different stages where they're like, oh, gross, don't kiss or whatever. But I think it's really healthy for children to know that their parents are nurturing their relationship.
Oh, I totally agree. So, not only do the kids get exposed to that, which is wonderful, but, we can pay attention to each other and not get lost in the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the kids need our attention sometimes, but we can cherish those moments because I'm sure with a busy career and 5 children, time is at a premium. So
it is.
Trying to get every drop out of every minute you have.
Oh, yeah. And some of my happiest moments are in the kitchen when we have music on and Josh will take me and he'll spin around dancing with me. And there are times when there's been a baby on my hip, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm totally like connecting with him, right? Like this is our family.
Yeah.
This is what we want. And when we do those types of things, I think that's when we feel more love to each other. We feel more connected. And of course, it makes our bedroom life better. Right.
And the other thing I heard in what you were saying is that we don't have to go out and spend a fortune going out to eat or on sitters or on these big adventures. We can find joy in simple activities that we can do at home.
Oh,
Singing
absolutely.
Together, baking, whatever it is. We don't have to be looking for these huge moments, just these little precious ones.
Yeah, I love that. Another thing that Josh and I have done is when the kids the oldest was probably like 10 or 11, so not quite old enough to leave home for like an extended movie date night, but kind of old enough that you could run out. One thing that we would do is we would just walk around the block, so we're like kind of within earshot if there's like a fire or something, right?
Yeah.
But Josh would say, let's just go walk the block. And we would walk and we'd come back in front of the house and wave and check in, and then we'd walk another lap. That was great because I needed a break from the kiddos because they were young and I'd been home with them all day. Getting out in nature, I think getting outside feels good. We could just hold hands and walk and talk about whatever, his work or bills, or that's never romantic, but whatever we needed, the kids, without them hearing us talk about them. And it gave us kind of, again, just like a new perspective because we were outside on this little walk. And so that's something that we still try to do is take walks. And I think it's a great way to connect. Just take a walk around your block. You know, it
Right,
doesn't
right.
cost any money. We've also like, let's walk to Sonic and split a drink. That's an easy, cheap date because definitely
Yes.
going through all these years of training, the budget has been limited along the way. So
Right, right. And you know, if need be, you can take children on a walk if they're too young to leave at home.
yeah,
Right. So
absolutely. We
there's
push
that
mini
family time.
strollers. Yeah,
Right.
lots of times we would have the youngest in a stroller or, some type of baby carrier as we did that. Exactly.
Right. Right. So I'm just curious in your own story if you did the two of you get to a place that was difficult or disconnected and you've had to put these efforts in to reconnect or have you always prioritized your relationship like this and not really ever lost much ground?
I think we've done really well in making sure that our difficult times were not long lived.
Mhm.
So if I were to tell you that we haven't had difficult times, that would not be true.
Right.
But to say like, oh, we had like this whole year where we were totally disconnected, that would also not be true.
Okay.
So we've had certain times in his career where we have felt, just disconnected. And we've also done long distance.
Oh,
So we've lived long distance from each other for up to 3 or 4 months, certainly not as long as some people, but 3 or 4 months without seeing each other can be a long time. And we've had to just try to connect via phone call. And I think that's probably been the hardest thing for us. I don't think we're as good at the FaceTime phone call thing, just really didn't cut it for us. And we were both
yeah.
pretty miserable. So long distance, I think, was one of our big challenges.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to me, the tips are the same. This idea of how do we really prioritize our intimate relationship. But I know some people have a longer distance, like they've got real ground to make up, like they may really have become disconnected or grown apart in a way. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes, you just get it's always hard, I think, after you have a child. So we have 5 kids. So, you have the baby and so I think a lot of our more distant times have come after maybe having a kiddo. And then we've kind of had to like come back to, okay, it's almost like rebuilding it up again. And where am I at sexually? What am I feeling in that regard? Because my body's producing all types of hormones and they're not all directed at having sex, right? They're
right.
directed at nursing, they're directed at caring for these children. And so it's almost like re-exploring. And I think if you can look at your marriage as almost like little new chapters or mini stories within your story. So instead of
Mm,
just thinking, oh, we're going to get married and live happily ever after, it's kind of like, okay, well, we're going to have this baby or this job change or this major life event. And we're going to have to like kind of fall in love again, not quite fall in love again because you have that foundation, but you're going to have to re-spark it again. And if you can look at that with a little bit of curiosity, like how can we get there? And even I know like things that as your body changes with pregnancies or just with age, what you like when you're 24 may not be what you like when you're 36 or when you're 40,
absolutely.
right?
Right. Right.
And so having that open mind to kind of say, hey, we're going to have new chapters. We're going to kind of explore what we like and just be willing to talk to each other is important.
Yeah. That's a lovely way to put it to realize that it's totally normal and healthy to have these different chapters, different
Right. And it
stories.
can almost be exciting, right? If you
Yeah.
look at it with an open mind, instead of being like, oh, if we were, had the best marriage on earth, we would just obviously like it would just be ecstasy from honeymoon on,
Right.
instead looking at it like, well, how can we make our 30s the best or our 40s the best, and then like with each passing year, you're kind of like, oh, this will be different.
Right.
What can we do to enjoy this phase?
Right. Yeah, it helps to have the realistic expectations, right? It's not get married and live happily ever after from that moment on. It just takes more work than that.
Oh no. And for me, I think if anything, it might on a personal level, like I enjoy sex more now than I did when I first got married, right?
Mm,
And I think that's normal for a lot of people too, because you get more comfortable with who you are and what you like. And it's just not as awkward because you have more experience. And so you're able to get out of your head a little bit, I think, and enjoy it more.
one of the people I've done a lot of training with, I love this. He says we can't even really have great sex till at least our 50s. It just
Oh,
takes
nice.
being, yeah, I know. It's not really, it's helpful to think of that because we have to be full people. Like the more we are ourselves and life experience, we grow into being a bigger person that is then able to have better sex.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. I mean, I'm not in my 50s yet, but there you go.
Well, you have
something to look forward to, right? I'll be looking forward to my 50s now.
Right. So just say another word just about your podcast and where people can find you if they're interested.
Yeah, absolutely. So my podcast is called Married to Doctors, and it's great, of course, if you're married to a physician or anyone in a demanding career. I have lots of people that listen whose spouses are just in other demanding careers. And like I said, we talk about the ups and downs of being married to physicians. We talk about everything from sex and romance to money managing to not raising spoiled brat children and parenting issues that come up, relationship issues that come up. We cover a wide variety of topics, and it's pretty easy to find. Just Married to Doctors, and you'll find it.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jessa.
Sure.
You've been listening to Better Sex. Please visit our website, bettersexpodcast.com, for show notes and additional episodes.
And that's a wrap for today. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. If you are enjoying the podcast, if some of this material resonates with you and you would like to make a difference and make sure that this keeps coming out in the world once a week, ongoing, there are a couple things you could do to show your appreciation. The first would be to go to iTunes and rate and review the show. That really helps us be found by new listeners when you review the show on iTunes. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/iTunes. The other thing I want to invite you to consider is becoming a Patreon. For a small monthly pledge, you get some benefits. So for $2 a month, you get advance access to every single episode. For $5 a month, you get a chapter of my upcoming new book. And for $10 a month, I host quarterly get-to-know-you and question-and-answer chats over the web, and you get invited to that. I would love to have your membership in that, become part of the Better Sex family. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/Patreon, which is Patreon. Again, thanks for listening. I'm glad you're here. Feel free to comment, ask questions, get in touch. I'd love to hear from listeners. Thanks.